We received a call from the Animal Cruelty Task Force at the Humane Society that they needed our assistance at Longmeadow because they had an immediate rescue with a large number of horses, and the Sheriff's Department was asking for their assistance. We had to gather the whole team together. We had about a dozen employees that went to the rescue, as well as 4 trailers to take such a large number of horses. The site was a very remote property. There was no grass on the ground. Every branch that you could tell an animal could reach had been stripped of its bark and its leaves. And it just was a very scary and dismal place. I mean, the number of bones and deceased animals that were at different stages, and I feel horrible for them living amongst that. There was a small pen that had a young horse that was down, and that was Tumbleweed. It wasn't obvious at first that she was even alive because she wasn't moving. As we got closer, you could see there were bones from deceased horses in the pen and around her. You could tell she'd been thrashing and trying to get up and just didn't have enough strength to get up. There was a bowl of feed that was a poor quality of grain that was outside of her reach, where she couldn't even reach it. There was a kind of dirty pan of water that was also a distance from her that she couldn't get to. And the other horses and equine were just kind of milling around, and they were scared. I mean, you could tell that they weren't happy where they were living and they needed to go to a better place. Our first plan of action with Tumbleweed is to see if we could help her stand. Because ideally we would get her standing and get that blood flowing back to her organs and her legs. So we tried to help her, and there were about 8 people attempting to lift a pretty light horse. She was not even 200 pounds. But because she had no muscle left, she wasn't putting any effort forth anymore. Like, I truly believe she had given up at that point. She would just collapse when we would lift her. So the next step was that we needed to put her on what we call a glide. So we positioned her on the glide, which is kind of like a big sled with straps, and we secured her to that and used that to slide her over to the trailer, so then we could actually pull her up onto the trailer. And then she took the trip to the vet clinic laying down since she couldn't stand. So we take her off the glide so she doesn't stay strapped to that for the trip. It's the safest way to move a downed horse. She had to be kept in a sling because she couldn't stand on her own. It's a significant amount of cost to have a horse at that level of care at the vet clinic. And this is Tumbleweed now. So if you look at the pictures that you've seen of how horrible she looked before, it's just unbelievable that this is the same horse just 11 months later. She has gained almost 400 pounds from when she came in. She's also a growing horse, so she's going to keep getting bigger. But she was a couple hundred pounds underweight. And so as you can see now, she feels much better. She's full of spunk and energy and loves to get out and run around with her friends out in the paddock. A rescue like Vernon County is a very costly thing for a rescue like us. Just Tumbleweed, who was one horse out of that rescue, and she did require the most intensive treatment at the vet clinic, but her care was $7,000+ for just that initial 2-week time. So you factor in each of the other horses that took at least $1,000 for their initial rehabilitation and care that they needed to be caught up on, like teeth floating and treating for parasites. And so these large rescues and the small ones and all these horses that we come in, it really adds up. And that's why it's so important for us to have people to support our cause and support us to be able to rescue more horses from horrific conditions. The Vernon County horses are all doing great in their rehabilitation. They are all up for adoption. We've had many of them that have already been placed in homes. Some of them, like Tumbleweed, took a full 6 months plus to be rehabilitated. So many of them were just put up for adoption within the last few months. Some are in training here at the ranch with our horse trainers, so they're being trained for riding to help make them more adoptable, and have all made a very great recovery, and we're very optimistic about placing them in new homes. The adoption for the equine may not be as expensive as you think that it is. The adoption fees range anywhere from a couple $100 up to maybe $1,000 for some of the horses that have some more training, and maybe for more of a beginner rider. But we also have many that all the way from babies like Bina here up to an older horse that would be good as kind of a trail riding companion. We do have the option here at Longmeadow as well, where if you choose to adopt a certain horse, you can also have our horse trainer here train the horse for you and even with you. So if you come out and take lessons with the horse, it's really an ideal situation to help find that perfect match to take home.